If you could change one thing about how politics works in Australia, what would it be?
Policy or how? I mean, that's a broad question because there's a lot of things that need to change.
Even maybe the mechanism to communicate mainstream media. What's the biggest
okay,
bottleneck?
So given that it's in regards to politics, let's throw the way our system works in terms. There's a couple of things here. And this is a good one to throw in. Is should we have compulsory voting or not? Should people who don't really care about politics, I mean, they can have the vote if they want to vote, but if they don't want to vote, why do we make them vote? And that matters at the moment because I don't think.
Yeah, a lot of uneducated voters.
The way that
If the US had compulsory voting, it is quite likely Donald Trump would never have been elected.
Agree.
And here's the thing. Compulsory voting has served us very well in Australia. It's provided a great deal of stability. But unfortunately, that stability has turned into stagnation. We've now got two major parties that, in my view, are, rotting dead carcasses. They are afraid of, putting themselves out there, suggesting, we haven't had any groundbreaking new policy probably since Howard brought in the GST. I can't remember the last political election where we actually had an election based around significant policy at all. So, and this is the thing. So we're now breeding these weak and insipid politicians because they're comfortable within the compulsory system. And, people first are up against this. We've got to get 4% of the vote to even get the money back. So if we do get to $1 million, say, by 2028, we've got to get 4% and we start from scratch again. So yet again, there's that problem in the system. The majors, they've now, because their primary votes dropped from, say, close to 50% down to the low 30s, they've now paying themselves $5 a vote, not $3.38. So they've given themselves a pay rise for their own incompetence. So I think I would like to see compulsory voting abolished. And I don't say that with glee because, I do think compulsory voting can serve us well, but our politics in this country is very stagnant. And I think that if you made it optional, you might get a shake up in the system a bit more because those people who are more active will be able to have greater influence rather than the people who are inactive.
What's the path to getting that approved?
That doesn't have to be, that's not stated in the Constitution. So I think that's just a question of changing the 1918, there's a word for it, Electoral Act. I'm pretty sure you don't need to have a vote. I'm pretty sure that's not constitutional compulsory voting. I doubt the majors would support it because they know that a lot of people go up, even though this is now rapidly changing. And so, mate, there was a time where people, because the majors got all the news attention, people just voted for either the leader of the opposition or leader of government, the prime minister, because that's all they ever heard about. With social media now, that's breaking it down and people are following, backbenchers and the like. I've still, even though I'm not in politics, probably still got a bigger social media profile politically than, I guess, 90% of politicians in Canberra. So that is breaking down.
Yeah, you got a few 100,000 followers on Facebook. I was actually quite surprised to see that amount.
Yeah.
Which is job well done.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. That doesn't necessarily convert into votes, I should add.
No.
But but that one's worth, a lot of people talk, and same for compulsory preferential. So I still think you should have preferential, but should it be compulsory? There's two arguments to that one. You don't want a situation whereby if it wasn't compulsory and someone got 25, you had 10 parties running, and someone, and it started off 15, 14, 13, 12, so it added up to 100, but the highest ranked party was 15%. And let's assume no one gave preferences out. Under that extreme model, someone could govern the country with 15% of the vote if you had 10 parties running, right? So that's the downside of not having preferential. You want to say, well, if I can't get my first pickup, I want the second pick, right? But on the other hand, it also entrenches with people not understanding the preference. So if we had the old system of Senate voting where you had the group voting ticket prior to 2016, which used to be the Senate, the process in the Senate, I'd be the senator, not Malcolm, because I had the preferences from Palmer's fourth preference. I was above One Nation there, Family First, Libertarians, and Citizens Electoral Party. So yet again, that little tinkering of the Electoral Act in 2016 was the difference between myself and Malcolm getting up in the last election. Not many people would have realised that. And interestingly enough, even though I was Family First number 2 preference, 30% of their votes went to the Greens and the Cannabis Party. You know what I mean? Like, so that's the downside to preferential
Right,
voting
yeah,
is that
it's,
preferences just get
can't
sprayed
be sprayed.
everywhere.
Is there any way that the Australian citizens can call for a change like compulsory voting, or is it
Yeah, absolutely. Join a political party and get actively involved. There's no easy
Hard work.
It's hard work. All I can say is the world is run by those who turn up.
Yeah.
So, if you're not involved in a political party, if you're not happy with the political system, but you're not involved in a political party, don't complain when things aren't going your way. And this is what I've been saying to our followers, because I'll do a survey when I do my branch meetings. I go, how many people have been in a political party before? And you might get 1 in 10, and they're usually disgruntled LNP, but we do have Labor and Greens people in our party. And I'll say, how many people have actually been in a volunteer organisation, like a school PNC, sporting organisation, where you've turned up and run your locals? Not many. And I say to them, well,
I don't think I've ever have, to be honest with you.
Yeah, there you go. So don't complain, because the world is run by those who turn up. And if you're not turning up to these things, getting it, and you don't have to make a contribution through politics. You can make a contribution.
Actually, we are. We're volunteering on the podcast.
Oh, well, no, you are. No. That's a volunteering effort. And it's not necessarily always you have to change the world through politics. You can do it through your education system, getting involved with school PNF, the sporting, system, or there's people that work at St. Vincent's de Paul for free. My aunt, who recently passed away, she used to volunteer, well into her 80s, to go and work at St. Vincent de Paul a couple of days a week. Everyone who makes a volunteer, all our volunteers who are out there helping, whether you're Lions or Rotary, that's what makes for a better community. And that's probably one of the biggest disadvantages of this iPhone and in-house entertainment today, whether it's Netflix. 50 years ago, people would leave their house because they were literally bored. There was nothing to do. Now you can pick up the phone and get someone to bring you an ice cream.
There's only so many dandelions you can pick.
It gets back to the point you were making before, right? Like the reality is we're not struggling as bad as what we were struggling 50, 60 years ago. That the life here is still very high quality and still probably too good, that it's almost like you have to feel a little bit more pain to get involved at a deeper level, right?
Yeah. But even feeling pain, you still need direction and hope and structure. And that's what we want to do at people first. And I don't know if we can get there on our own, but even if One Nation started branches because we did. So that's lifting the standard already.